Okay, welcome to everything you needed to know about second gear. Got the engine stripped down, crankshaft's there, gears are here, gear selector, shaft, fork selectors. So I'll first show you how your gear selector works. So this is your foot gear selector, gear lever. Goes through shaft, goes through the engine, and then these claws go onto these shafts on the star selector, and this barrel rotates. So when this shaft drops into here, you can see that these dogs go around each side of the claw here. So as you go down the box, the claw grabs the dog and rotates the barrel, and exactly the same when you go up the box, and it rotates the shaft. And a bit more light in there, you can see there as it rotates the shaft up and it rotates the shaft down. And that's how you select the gears using your foot. So that's the first bit done. That's quite simple. Now these shafts go on these tabs, and these dogs bend sometimes, so you need to make sure that your selector is actually in good condition, which this one is. Now this star barrel here, you'll notice in each of these indents where this lever goes is a gear, and you'll notice that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this bit here, which is actually a cutout on one of these crescents, this bit here is neutral. So when we take that round to the bottom there, this sits into neutral. This is first gear, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So we go one down, which rotates this into here. So we come out of neutral into first. So this is neutral, this is first. Now to get to second, we don't go this way, we go back through neutral into second, and we have to select this. So this is the only gear between first and second where you have to overcome the neutral. So again, when we turn this, we go neutral, second. Now that sometimes stays in neutral, which puts obviously is a problem when you want to go in from first to second. We hit neutral, that's second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Obviously goes back round, that's first, neutral. So that is how you select your gears. Now what happens on your gears, so let's pop this down, is to get rid of that as well, we don't need that anymore. Right, so what happens here is you've got your fork selectors in your races here. Now these fork selectors have three positions. They have a neutral position, which is where they are not actually selecting any gears. They have a right position, which is selecting first gear. In this case, this is first gear, this is second. We have a right position and a left position. And what happens is when we move these fork selectors via the barrel, that this selector dog here moves this pinion into this gear there, like that. So this selects first gear. Now normally first gear spins. This selects first gear and actually drives the first gear. This has three positions as well. It has a neutral position, it has first gear position, and a fourth gear position. This one here has a second gear position where it engages second gear. Without engaging, second gear spins, it engages second gear and engages third gear. So we have here is first, back to neutral, second, third, back to neutral, fourth, and then fifth and sixth is selected up on this one here. Now these gear selectors, fork selectors, this is a good one. So you can see here that this is actually quite clean, and it's selected on the tips of the fork selector. So only the tips engage in the groove and move the dog. Second gear, I don't know if you can see here, second gear, but it seems to have been heated. Now what's happened is it's bent. This fork selector is actually slightly bent, and instead of the tips here engaging here and selecting these dogs, it's actually down here. You can see here it's actually scored, and this is doing the work of selecting the gear and not the tips. So this needs replacing. Now what happens here when these dogs are selected, you can see here they're actually, the dogs locate in these recesses. So when it moves forward, when this dog moves forward, these engage and lock in there in any one of those positions there. Now what happens is, you can see here these are quite sharp edged, and that's not a bad condition, and these dogs are also quite sharp edged. So as I go through this and I take this apart, you'll see now this is the selector pinion. Now you'll see third gear is actually quite not too bad, but if I turn that over and this engages here into second gear, you'll see here these dogs are rounded, and once they start rounding they're only going to get worse. And if you can see that in the light, they're only going to get worse. They round off, but not only that, inside here you can see this is started to round off, so the engagement of that dog in this gear is also compromised, and this pops this dog out of this gear, and that's what your second gear issue is. Once it gets to a point where this dog will not actually stay in with the bent selector fork, so the selector fork is actually bent this way, this will pop out of second gear. So this needs replacing, this needs replacing, and the fork selector needs replacing. I'll put all this back together and then I'll show you how it actually works in the gearbox with these cams as these rotate. Each one of the fork selectors has this dog, and that location there goes into the race in here on the selector barrel, and this moves these three positions. So first gear I've marked here. So first gear, this is a neutral position, this is first gear, and if we stay in that race we'll see it stays neutral all the way around, and then instead of going this way it pushes the other way. So this position here is fourth gear, I've marked it here. So first gear, the fork selector is forced to the right, then it goes back to the neutral position. This here is a neutral position for second, so the fork position is in neutral, the same as it is there. So this hasn't changed position, so this stays where it is, and then suddenly this position here moves to the left, and this position on the barrel from first moves back to neutral. So this comes out of first gear as this goes into second gear. Now you'll notice not only is from first to second got to overcome the neutral position on the star, it also has only a proportion of the location that first gear does on the fork selector. the fork selector sits in here, and it has a nice U shape and is controlled by this position here, whereas second gear here is only a pivot. Oops. This is only a pivot. I don't know if you can see that there. It's only that bit there that locates second. So sometimes this, not only does the gear warm, but this barrel wears here, which also contributes to the selector fork dropping out of second gear. Then as we go round, you can see third gear. So this fork selector now moves from the left to the right. So we have first gear here, second, third, then it goes back to neutral, as this one then comes to fourth. And then the middle track, you can see the middle track here is neutral all the way through. So we go past fourth, and then suddenly it comes into effect when we go to fifth goes to the left, and then sixth goes to the right. So that's basically how the gearbox works. I'll put this all back together and I'll show you actually it's selecting.